Right now, underneath the Swiss-French border, 100 meters below the ground, scientists are running the most powerful machine ever built by human hands. It's called the Large Hadron Collider, and they're using it to recreate the first fraction of a second after the Big Bang. In other words, they're trying to recreate the moment of creation. Now, depending on who you ask, that's either the most exciting thing humans have ever attempted, or the most dangerous thing God never meant us to do. What is CERN? Let's start with what's actually happening down there. Because before we get into the theological debate, you need to understand what CERN actually is. CERN built a ring-shaped tunnel 27 kilometers in circumference beneath the border of Switzerland and France. Inside that ring, they fire tiny particles called protons in opposite directions at 99.999991% the speed of light. Then they smash them together. Each collision releases an enormous burst of energy. And for a fraction of a second, a fraction so small it has no name, conditions inside that detector are similar to those just after the Big Bang. In 2012, they used this machine to discover the Higgs boson, the particle that gives all other matter its mass, the so-called God particle. The scientist who first theorized this particle actually hated that nickname. He thought it was sensationalist, but the name stuck. And maybe, as we're about to explore, it's stuck for a reason. The statue nobody talks about. Now here's where things get interesting. Because standing outside CERN's main building, right there on the campus, is a 2-meter-tall bronze statue. And it's not of a scientist. It's not of Einstein or Newton or Bohr. It's Shiva, the Hindu god of destruction. The statue was a gift from the Indian government to CERN in 2004, and CERN accepted it, proudly. It sits on a plinth with a plaque that reads, "The dance of Shiva is the dance of subatomic matter. The continuous creation and destruction of the universe is the very nature of Shiva's dance." CERN says this is purely symbolic, a metaphor for the cycle of creation and destruction they study in particle collisions. But if you're coming from a biblical worldview, you might look at that statue and ask a very different question. Why does the world's most powerful scientific institution have a statue of a foreign god of destruction at its front door? What the Bible actually says. So let's bring in the other side of this conversation. Because there are serious theologians and biblical scholars who look at what CERN is doing and see something deeply familiar, something they've read about before. In Genesis, God speaks creation into existence from nothing. Let there be light. Out of a void, matter, energy, time, space. The universe begins. CERN's entire project is, in a sense, a reversal of that process. They're trying to look backwards, past all the complexity of the universe, to see what existed in the first moments after creation began. For many believers, that's not just ambitious, it's overstepping. Genesis 11, the Tower of Babel. Humanity, unified in purpose, building a structure to reach into God's realm. And God's response? He scatters them. He ends the project. Because, and this is directly from Scripture, nothing will be restrained from them which they have imagined to do. Then there's Revelation 9, the opening of the abyss. A star falls from heaven. Smoke rises from a bottomless pit. Some biblical scholars, and I want to be clear, this is interpretation, not consensus, see in that passage an allegory for what happens when humanity forces open doors that were meant to stay closed. These are ancient questions dressed in modern clothes. Is there knowledge humans were never meant to have? And if so, who decides where the line is? What the scientists say now. The real question. So here's where I land. And I want to be straight with you. I don't think CERN is going to open a portal to hell. The science on the safety of the LHC is actually very solid, but I do think there's a genuine and serious question buried underneath all the noise. One that humanity has never really answered. Is there knowledge we shouldn't pursue? not because it's dangerous in the physical sense, but because pursuing it changes us. Because the act of reducing creation to equations, of treating the universe as a problem to be solved rather than a gift to be received, costs us something we might not be able to get back. Every great civilization has had a version of this debate. The Greeks called it hubris. The Bible calls it the knowledge of good and evil, the price of knowing too much. CERN's scientists would say that's not what they're doing. They're driven by wonder, not pride, by curiosity, not conquest. And honestly, I believe them. But I also think the people asking the harder questions, the theologians, the philosophers, the faithful, those voices deserve a seat at the table. Because science can tell us what is possible, it cannot tell us what is wise. What happens when you put the Bible and particle physics in the same room? I think you get the most important conversation of our time. And I don't think either side should be having it without the other. Science without wisdom is just power. And faith without curiosity is just fear. The best version of humanity needs both. If this made you think, even if you disagree with me, hit the like button and drop your take in the comments. Are you a believer who's fine with what CERN is doing? A scientist with a faith background? I genuinely want to hear from you. Next week we're going deeper, looking at what CERN is planning to build next. It's called the Future Circular Collider, 4 times the size of the LHC, and the questions it raises are even bigger. Subscribe so you don't miss it. I'll see you there.